On today's Locked On Bucks, we are joined by the Milwaukee Bucks sideline and digital reporter Melanie Ricks to get her perspective on what went wrong last year, some of the moves that the team has made here in the offseason, and her journey in her first year as the sideline reporter for the Bucks. We get into that conversation and more next on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis, and we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen every day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube as well. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's Locked On Bucks brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As we know, the playoffs have wound down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel still hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. Something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As we mentioned, as you can see, if you're watching us on YouTube, we're joined by the sideline and digital reporter for the Bucks, Melanie Ricks, and we were talking as we started to set up the recording here as well. Mel, when I reached out to you and said, "Hey, do you want to do this? I know you're a big star now, but do you have time to jump on the show with us?" You jumped at the chance and even provided me proof that you are actual daily listener of the show.
I did. I was hoping you would tell people that my assistant responded to you, but yeah, it's true. I am my own assistant. No, I'm a huge fan. Honestly, I am. I think it's important, and this is something that I've learned from other sideline reporters. Shout out to my girl, Zora Stevenson. She's still someone that I go to a lot for advice, and Lisa Byington as well. And obviously she has like a quite a history with sideline reporting. They said it's continued education. What you put into it is what you'll get out of it. And so I think that you two, you're such a great resource for Bucks fans, including myself. And I'm a Bucks fan. So yeah, I really like listening to your show. And thank you for having me, by the way. I'm excited to be here.
But of course. I mean, hearing that you're an everyday or that isn't enough should be proof for people to also listen to Locked On Bucks every day. But no, it is super exciting to have you here. We have a lot that we want to get into it about with you. But first and foremost, let's just dig a little bit into your backstory. Are you from Milwaukee? Like, what started your Bucks fandom?
Yeah, so I am born and raised in the city. I'm 32 years old, almost 33. I don't know when you're putting the show out. It might be after I turn 33.
When's your birthday?
So my birthday is August 8th. It's on Thursday of this week. Yeah.
Well,
so
happy early birthday.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you, girl. So I'm almost the same age as Jesus. But then when I start saying that, I'm like, wait, let's not go there. But no. So I've been in Milwaukee for almost 33 years. And yeah, born and raised a Bucks fan. Basketball was always really big in my house growing up. And I always tell people, I've been with the organization for the last 20 years. And so before I tell them my age, I say, yeah, I came out of the womb and then the Bucks hired me. But I started as a junior dancer when I was 12 years old. And then Camille, I was so obsessed with the team, and I'm not even kidding you. I stayed in Milwaukee for school. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee so that I could continue to dance for them because I really looked up to the adult dancers at the time. They were called the Energy Dance Team. And so dance, that started my journey. And I love sharing that story because I think it's so important for people to really lean into their passions that they have even in their childhood. You just never know how it's going to translate into your adulthood. And, a lot of people say they have hoop dreams, and hoop dreams can look like a lot of different things these days,
That's a fact.
Yeah, since we started there, I think we'll stick with the backstory, Mel. It's remarkable. It's, I think, what every Bucks fan aspires for too, when you talk about being on the dance team and then doing the in-arena hosting and then filling in for Zora that last year that Zora was here and eventually getting promoted up to that role. It's a remarkable story. I don't know if you and I have talked about this. The first time I met you, we got a chance to work together on that show, Courtside Live. I knew who you were. I had never met you or interacted with you before. And it was early January that we did our first show. I just remember the day before our first show, I think it was like a Sunday. We all of us, the production crew, you and I, we all went to the arena to basically do a run through. And that show I did a year or two prior to that, where it was just me talking, not on camera. You saw the players warming up. It was Nick Monroe's brainchild. And a few people left that were associated with it, so we didn't have the bandwidth, and COVID happened, so all of it got put on hold. It was the one thing that surprised me the most, that people would ask about, hey, when is that going to come back? So that off season, Nick reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing it again? But we're gonna undergo some changes with the show. Like, okay, sure. And he's telling me you're gonna be on camera, and thinking like, I'll believe it when I see it, sure. And I remember jumping on a Zoom call with Nick, with Johnny Watson, Kate as well, to talk through, here's what the show is going to be. And the whole time just thinking, this isn't really going to be the show, right? Like, they're describing an actual TV production. So we show up for our run through, and I'm usually like a fairly even keeled guy. Don't get too stressed out. I was so nervous that entire day, just going through being on camera and like, where do I need to look? What do I have to look like? And what do I have to do with this? When we paired off to talk through, okay, write your scripts and think about what you're going to say, you were just so easygoing and always positive, and this ray of positivity and sunshine. It put me at ease that show became so easy to do. The crew was great too. Johnny is the best. Kate, everybody that we worked with made it so easy. To this day, that experience of that show, not knowing what it was, you and I got to turn it into whatever we wanted. That is the most fun I've ever had in this job.
I love that, Justin. I'm not surprised you're working with me, but that's so great. No, I'm just kidding. And you know what's funny, Camille? I don't know if you know this about Justin, because I feel like you come off as a serious guy. You are hilarious.
He is.
He's one of the funniest people I know, and because he doesn't like try. He's just funny. And so, Justin, I mean, you say that I was easygoing. You're the one that was easygoing, and I don't know, it's something about you're just so funny, and you're fun to talk to, and obviously you're very wise and you're quick-witted as well. So it was easy as well to work with you. But I appreciate you sharing that.
It was quite an experience, and the whole thing too. I mean, you got to be a part of the parade, and you were the ones on stage emceeing the whole event when that happened. Just the overall experience of that year. We were doing the emceeing together outside the arena for the pep rallies and everything else. I mean, whenever anybody, and I'm sure it's, even magnified for you, whenever anybody asks me about the year that the Bucks won the title, there's the weird portions of it when you'd go into the arena and it was just you and 20 other people and things like that early in the season. But when they're, hey, what was your favorite part? Like, I can't give you just one memory. There were so many of those things that you picked up along the way.
And how funny that, you described our first meeting and all of that, Justin. It was such a unique time, obviously, with COVID. And if I'm not mistaken, it went from 0 fans when we first started to 25 to 50, and then so on and so forth. And so, to your point, we were doing courtside live for the fans that couldn't be in the arena. And I think that's what made it so special as well, because we knew, like, we're having fun, we're being silly. Like, if I recall, Camille, we almost treated it like an SNL type of vibe sometimes, you know what I mean? A little sketchy, and not sketchy in a bad way, of course, but I mean, there were sketches. But I also, and Justin wore Skechers, but I feel like it was really.
First of all, I did not. Okay. Remember our Heat on Feet segment? There were no Skechers.
That's right. That's right.
Justin had to clear the record real quick. Like, let me be clear.
Notice he didn't let me get through another
segment. He said no Skechers. He said respect the shoe game.
Okay, listen. But no, it really was such a unique time. But Justin, I love that you talked about that, because look at what it turned into, the championship. And how cool is it that you and we got to be a part of that? But can I ask you two a question really quickly? Do you consider yourselves NBA champions because you were so involved in that championship run?
Now, for me, because at that time I was not officially part of Locked On Bucks. I was doing guest appearances every so often. So during that time frame, I really got to see it from like a fan perspective, like truly. During that time frame, because I was just doing guest appearances on Locked On Bucks, I had my own podcast, Technical File. We were doing post-game shows ourselves and then going to work for our 9 to 5 in the morning. So it was a labor of love throughout that finals run trying to cover the Bucks and us just processing what we were seeing, but actually seeing them win that championship, I actually took a video of it. It's somewhere on the internet floating around of me like crying, of just like tears of like, I cannot believe we are here, because I'm also somebody who's born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So like I'm a little bit older than you. So we actually are probably overlapping. I was at Marquette, but a lot of times I was at UWM, so on and so forth. And I said when the Packers won the Super Bowl, like when the Bucks finally win one, it's going to be different, because seeing that Milwaukee across the chest always hits a little bit differently when you're from the city and you have love for the city. So seeing them finally do it, it was just like a moment of like, I can't believe this is real, especially with the guys who got us to this championship, the growth that we've seen of watching Giannis when he came into the league, watching Chris getting traded here and becoming like my favorite Buck player. It was just so much that went into it. So I didn't feel like I won anything, but I felt like the city won something, which was good enough for me.
I love that.
As for me, I'll share my answer coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. This next segment of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by BetterHelp. Look, what are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you're one of those guys that never skips leg day at the gym. Well, your frame of mind should be no different. Maybe your schedule is packed with activities, big work projects that you're tackling, vacations, anything else that can really get to you. It's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when you know what it is that makes you happy, it's hard to find the time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It is designed to be convenient and flexible, and most importantly, it's suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire, and from there you get matched with a licensed therapist. You can even switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Yeah, I mean, same thoughts as Camille had, in that we were so very fortunate, Mel, to be, as we talked about, early in the season, two of the only people that were in the arena and that close to the team to get to see all of that unfold. Everything I got to do along the way too, with that, you were great. Everybody that we worked with on that show too. I had worked with the same 5 or 6 people for the most part in radio. So doing that show really opened up other doors and let me get to know Johnny Watson and Kate and Brian and Pat and Luke and the rest of that team. DJ Shauna too, who was a part of the show. So I got to meet those people and develop friendships with them and learn more about them. That was very special too. But then as, fans started to re-enter the arena, it started to feel like, oh man, this is really something. And it was around the All-Star break where you started to get this feeling of, I think this year feels different than others, where I think there's something building here. And that whole experience of, broadcasting during the playoffs, when, think back to when we were doing those gatherings in Deer District before games. I remember that series against the Miami Heat. You had a decent showing, but it was nowhere near what we saw at the end. After the first 2 games against the Brooklyn Nets, you didn't know what you were walking into before game 3 of what's the mood going to be, how many people are going to be here. And then once that series got evened up, it was more crazy and enthusiastic, I think, for fans outside the arena for games 6 and 7 of the Nets series than it was in the conference finals.
Well, and you know what? Obviously, there was just so much at stake. I think that for us, it was, at least from a fan standpoint, because at that time I was in arena. And so there were times, like, obviously I've been a Bucks employee, if you will, but there were times when I genuinely did feel more like a fan, And so at that time, I remember it being like, I know that we are capable, but this is the best team in the NBA from my perspective.
Right.
And we're facing them in the second round. Are you kidding? But then there was a voice that said, but you want to see them in the second round. So LFG. And, obviously fate had its way. But I will say, Justin, in that regard, how did you feel going into the Eastern Conference Finals, considering what had happened the last 2 years, and Camille, you as well? Because yeah, it felt different. I mean, the slogan was history in the making.
Yep.
So the team has a slogan every year. And in my opinion, that was a manifestation right there. And obviously, you know, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I felt like we believed that as a fan base. And so I still was a little bit hesitant even after making it out of that second round because of the bubble the year prior. Then, of course, what happened in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Raptors. How did you two feel, though? Like, were you certain after you beat the Nets, oh, we got this, we're good? Or were you still feeling a little bit hesitant?
Justin, how are you feeling? I'll let you go for that one first.
I was pretty confident that,
were you?
This team is going. Okay. This team is going to the final. And I don't think I technically answered the previous question. Yes, I felt like I was a part of that, of it, you know, with everything you and I did before with the courtside show, doing the radio broadcasts, that, yeah, I think I feel like a champion from that year. You but yeah, going into that series against the Hawks, I get your point of you can't overlook this. You've seen other like, look at what Atlanta did to Philadelphia and basically celebrating when you saw the Hawks won Game 7. You don't have to worry about Joel Embiid and the 76ers. Despite that, I still felt like this is in the bag. They are going to the finals.
Yeah, I was pretty confident too until I saw Giannis get hurt. And then it was a moment of like, what is happening? Can I give him my knee? What is going on?
We were all in line to donate, girl.
Like,
all of us.
Quickly, like, you can have my knee. I don't know how good it'll be, but you can have it. Like, if you want it, if it'll help. But then just thinking like, okay, well, I think we have enough talent still to be able to get over this hump. And then seeing Chris Middleton step up, Brooke Lopez, like, it was one of those things like, if we make it here, like, we're going to do it. And it was actually after they beat the Hawks, they win the East. It's a picture from the locker room with Giannis holding that trophy. He's like by himself and he's just holding it. And it's like the most sweet, like innocent, pure look on his face of like, this is what I've been looking to get to. Like, I was like, oh, he's probably going to play in the finals. I did not know how serious his injury was at that time, but it just like that picture, something about it was just like, I think we're going to do something here. And then we go down 0-2 to start the finals. And for some reason, I wasn't panicking. Maybe it was just being happy to be there in the first place, but it was like okay, just a game at a time, like win a game at a time. And once they evened that series up, I felt pretty good, but like really nervous. I can't believe we're really this close to the finals. You win game 5. I can't believe we're a game away from the finals. But you mentioned during that time too, you were the in-arena host. I'm actually really good friends with Joe. So seeing you and Joe was like my first introduction to you. When you think about that championship year and everything that went into it, like what are some things that stand out to you along the way from that season?
Oh gosh. Well, first the masks. You know, when I look at pictures,
remember our first few shows at courtside, we had to wear masks.
Yeah. And it's almost jarring. I just forget. And, you know, I'm fortunate enough that with me working in entertainment, obviously, you know, we would do rehearsals and the like, and sometimes we'd be able to go down to the court. But honestly, the court, it was pretty much off limits for us. You know, we really couldn't get too close. And so I remember that being a thing where, you know, the action was so close and yet so far. But I remember, and Joe and I, we had this conversation all the time. And I think it largely stemmed from what happened in the bubble the year prior. That team needed our fans, no question. I think every team needs their fans, you know, in a sense, but, you know, some teams, they just adapt quicker to that AAU style or, you know, whatever it may be. I think that for that particular team in that particular year, we needed our fans and it showed. And Joe and I, we came together, you know, Avengers Assembled, and we said, listen, it's going to be up to us to make sure that we believe, because then they're going to believe and then the team's going to believe. And that's another thing that really sticks out to me. And Camille, it was the number one thing. And it's actually part of why I asked you to, if you feel like champions. I feel like an NBA champion. And I actually feel like all of the city, and all of Bucks fans really worldwide should feel like champions, but particularly here in Milwaukee, because we did that, you know? And I think the team would say the same thing. I know they've said the same thing. And Joe and I, we knew how important our role was that season in particular. Justin, you understood your importance. Camille, you understood. And that's why you had a whole labor of love that season. I mean, we were all important in that championship run. And so, yeah, I think we're all champions. And that is the biggest thing that sticks out to me. Just to go back to your question, Camille, which is the fact that our fans were so instrumental. And I felt really important because I knew how important it was for me to bring the vibes, bring the positivity, and not in a cocky way, but in a, like, I believe, and I know they're going to believe because I believe type of way.
Yeah, it's one of those things too when you see your city on TV and you see how
different.
hyped the arena is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where it's a good
different.
representation of the city as well. And you feel proud
Yes.
about that. Like, that's my city. Like,
Yes.
yes, we have it shaking in here. Yes, we are
Yes,
doing our
girl.
job as
It
fans,
was
and you love to see
earthquaking.
that. Yes.
Some more thoughts on the NBA championship season and Mel and her role with the team, what she thinks about the moves in the offseason, what she learned last year as well. We'll get to that coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. This next segment of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by FanDuel. And look, we all love sports, so much so that we never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have wound down, we're getting fewer games, and the sports just aren't sporting like we want them to. FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. You know, Mel, I said before, I don't know if there's like one singular memory when people say, like, what's your fondest memory of that season? Is it the same for you? Is there one thing you can pinpoint?
I actually think it may have been when Giannis was crying and his mom was standing. I mean, you know, we all have seen the photos, but I was just a few feet away, and I was so emotional because, you know, you think about his dad, you think about Kobe, who said, all right, next challenge, NBA championship, you know, all of those thoughts are there. And then Camille, like you said earlier, seeing your city in the news for such great things, and you can literally hear the city outside of the arena, literally, you know, I mean, like you said, it was shaking. I mean, it was just in that moment, seeing Giannis so emotional, and then his mom, I mean, it really encompassed all of my emotions personally. And so, yeah, I would say that, because I think all of us felt what he was feeling in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
When you, I mean, it's no joke too, when you say, like, you could literally hear the city outside the arena. So we would, for the radio, we were doing all games from inside the arena that year, that there was obviously no travel. So we would broadcast from the radio booth, even when the Bucks were on the road. And game 7, when the Bucks beat the Brooklyn Nets, we were watching on a delayed feed by just a couple of seconds.
Oh.
So when you would kind of faintly hear some things where you would think, like, I think something good just happened, or I think something bad just happened. When it went to overtime, when Kevin Durant took that last shot that he airballed, we could hear this eruption outside the arena, like a second or two before that play happened. So you got the sense of something just happened. And as soon as Kevin Durant went up for the shot, you knew, I don't think he makes this. Yeah. And that was the crowd that you could hear outside of the arena. Even people, and I'm sure both of you had the same experience of, when you mentioned seeing your city on TV, people that were casual Bucks fans, or maybe were lapsed Bucks fans that used to be fans when they were kids and the team wasn't good for a while and they kind of went away, just hearing them say, I got to get down there because I see what this is like and I want to experience that.
Mm-hmm. It was infectious. It really was. And Camille, I mean, like you said, you're from Milwaukee. Can we talk about how, I don't even know what timestamp to put on it. Do we want to say 8-9 years ago? Could you see a Bucks jersey downtown? I mean, really?
Listen, I used to, like, this is how I always think about it, because me and my husband met during Giannis's rookie year. So, like, Giannis's career reminds me of, like, me and my husband's relationship as well. Like, we would go out to a bar and be like, hey, can you guys throw the Bucks game on? Like, you have high school like hockey on. Can you
literally
on? And they would look at us like, really? You want us to put the Bucks on? Like, they don't know. And it's like, put the Bucks game on, please. Like, can you put the game on? So I used to get made fun of for being a Bucks fan in Milwaukee, where I'm wearing the gear. I know the red and the green was hard to pull off, or, you know, Christmas colors. I get it. But, like, I'm wearing the gear and people are like, oh, why you got that on? It's like, I'm from here. Like, this is my city. This is my team. Exactly. And honestly, when the Bucks weren't that great is when I really became like a super fan of the team, because I was in college and it was really cheap to go to the Bradley Center and watch the team. So, like, the Brandon Jennings years is when I really, really became a huge Bucks fan, because Michael Jordan got my love for basketball started. He retired. I started rocking with the green and the purple Bucks with the Ray Allen, Big Dog, Sam Cassell years. Once Ray Allen got traded, I was like, I'm not too sure about you guys. Like, why would you do this? And then some years lapsed. And then it was when I got to college and was like, just need something to do tonight. Going to the games got me really into the team again. So you talk about that time frame to when they win a championship. And I have never heard the city of Milwaukee sound the way it sounded after the Bucks won that championship. I can still hear all the horns honking, just the music, people cheering. And it was all over the downtown area, not even just by the arena. It was absolutely ballistic that night.
Few things can bring that many people from that many different walks of life together in a city like ours. You know what I mean? And I think this team, obviously this team is one of the few things that can, but sports, you know what I mean? Sports in general, and how big of a blessing is it that we in this small market, in this city that less than a decade ago, it was tough to see people walking around in Bucks gear. It was tough to give away. I've been an entertainer for the Bucks for a few years now. We used to literally go to bars and give tickets away for free. Please come to the game. Please come to the game. And so to see all of that, and I love, Camille, that you're able to not base your relationship, but the same barometer, a similar barometer, if you will, with your relationship. I think that's really cool that you have that. Cause I kind of look at that as my adulthood too. Really, I was a freshman in college, the 09-10 season. So Brandon Jennings rookie season. I remember his 56-point game. You remember all of those things. And it's just so cool when you see your own personal growth or your relationship growth or whatever it may be. And you're growing alongside this team. And basically the long and short of that is Camille and I are both nerds for the Bucks.
Well, I covered the team when they were in the Bradley Center, and I started in the radio role when you were probably 9 years old, Mel, in 2015. And being in the Bradley Center and just seeing the experience too of, the run through the finals to the championship, when you would see tens of thousands of people outside the arena, not going in, just standing outside the arena to watch on screens, and hearkening back to, man, I remember being in the Bradley Center where there was maybe 4,000 people in there on any given night. And, to the point you raised earlier, it's what made it even more special for the Bucks was, they weren't this long storied franchise. I know it probably takes a little bit away with the 71 championship and the 74 finals appearance, how good they were in the 80s. But, they weren't the Celtics. They weren't the Lakers with that type of history. They weren't this upstart franchise that all of a sudden came into good players and they were good. If you were a Bucks fan, you had been through it. So that's what made it even more special to think this team, if I told you in, 2010, 2000 that, hey, the Bucks have a legitimate shot to win a championship, you would have thought it was crazy. But to go through that and to see we no longer have to keep looking back at 2001 as the year that might have been, that's what made it really special, I think, for all the hardcore Bucks fans, and especially for the city, where you had people that it seemed like they wanted to get into the Bucks, but it was just the structure of the NBA where you always knew there's 2 or 3 teams that have a chance to win. I'm just going to pay attention to the Brewers and the Packers.
And that really was the thing for a very long time. It truly was. And it's so remarkable because things change so quickly. And I'm a segue kind of girl. So I'm going to segue getting into more current Bucks. Yes. Because you guys, how crazy is it that the NBA has changed so drastically in such a short period? To me, since we have won the championship, I have seen the most change in the NBA than I think I've ever seen in that small of a margin of time. 3 years, I think that the NBA has changed a lot. And I don't know if it's because of the, it getting a little bit younger, it getting a little bit faster. I don't know if it's the Euro step. So many things have evolved in such a way that I do feel like that team that we had in 2021, it wouldn't quite look the same in the year 2024. But the teams that we are seeing in the year 2024 don't look the same as they did 3 years ago. I'm curious if you agree with that.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And we spent a lot of time going over the history, but to your point, what we saw from this team last year, the changes that they made, how that matches up with the evolution of the league and what we're seeing in the NBA. We'll get into that conversation coming up here in part 2 of our chat with Melanie Ricks on tomorrow's Locked On Bucks. All right, much more to get into with Melanie Ricks, the digital and sideline reporter for the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll get some of her thoughts on the offseason moves, what it was like being around the team, even more so a season ago, her favorite things about being on the road, her favorite travel companions, all of that, and some questions from you. So still a lot more to hear from Melanie Ricks. We'll get into that conversation as this chat continues on tomorrow's show on Locked On Bucks.